Send it in.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 17 of the Bucket Send It In podcast, talking about, I still can't believe I get to say this, your defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers as they look to run it back. But before that, they have a lot that they need to take care of and a lot that they've done, which we're excited to talk about. I'm Jay Gibson alongside my friend and co-host Alex Krutchik. Alex, you were at the parade. The weather wasn't the best, but the vibes were out of the roof, man. What were your thoughts?
No, it was awesome. It was like the perfect South Florida parade. It was really hot for the first the couple of hours leading up to the parade, and then as soon as it started at 11 a.m., huge storm clouds come above us. We took the water taxi in, and the entire about halfway through the water taxi ride, starts raining a little bit, but we're like, this is fine, we can manage this. And then by the time we got to the actual parade, the skies just opened up above us. Lightning was hitting the beach. We were standing outside of a 7-Eleven for an hour, just not trying to be out in the open near the water, because it was coming down right above us. I was looking at a lightning map on my phone, and it was stuff that was hitting like right off the water, right off the beach.
Yeah.
On A1A. They still went through with the parade. I think it was delayed by 30 minutes, but even still, it was above us even while the parade was happening, even though they delayed it. What I liked, though, was towards the end, people just kind of were resigned to the fact that, okay, it's wet. This is just what we're dealing with. No one was using their umbrellas. No one cared about where they were standing or sitting. We all just kind of accepted the fact that, okay, everything's just wet, and that's what it is today. It was
How close did you get to the players?
We were pretty close. What was nice about it was packed, but it wasn't a complete madhouse where you were standing 500 yards off of the barricades. We got there right as the parade started, and we were able to get almost right up next to the barricades. There was a couple of people in front of us, but that was pretty much it. And what was awesome was the players left the buses to walk up and down the parade route.
Just do fun stuff.
Yeah, we saw Anton Lundell was on top of one of the buses, and he was waterfalling some beer to Alexander Barkov down on the street.
Oh, that's great.
So we saw that right up front. What else did we see? It was so cool. I don't know how common this is for other parades, but the Panthers made sure to include some of their well-known fans around the arena. They had fake Ric Flair. That was fun.
Yeah,
to see.
fake Ric Flair. They had the Super Panther fan. Yeah, that's all. By the way, he's retiring. So I heard he's retiring from being Super Panther fan.
Yeah. I didn't realize how long he'd been doing it for. He's been doing it since the mid-'90s. For some reason, I thought it was a relatively recent thing, but what a way to go out. And he announced it way before they actually won the cup. I think he announced it in the middle of the regular season.
Mm-hmm. So getting all giddy talking about this. What did I ask you how close we were to the players? We literally speak to them in the locker rooms after games. But oh man, no, it was fun to watch on TV, especially because every single channel that was broadcasting it was so awful with censorship and censoring stuff in time. They were absolutely terrible, but it made it better. That Coach Maurice speech at the end truly was absolute cinema. And yeah,
I forget which station it was. It might have been all of them, but at some point during the Paul Maurice speech, they just kept it silent for 30 consecutive seconds. They weren't even bothering with just it was just consecutive time of just pure silence because Paul Maurice was cursing so much.
But it was amazing. I mean, it was a heartfelt speech. I mean, he's that's just who he is. It's just how he talks. Seeing Bill Zito. By the way, I don't know if there was a single person sober on stage. I don't even think Goldstein was completely 100%. That's just the way it was going. But
I think he was sober. I think he was the chaperone of sorts.
The chaperone, yeah. And then from what I heard, they just went back to party at the Elbow Room a little bit more right afterwards, and then they all left to do whatever.
Yeah.
Well, you know how NORAD has a Santa tracker. I want a Stanley Cup tracker to see where that thing is right now.
Yeah, so do I. I saw that they just got their names engraved on the thing.
Oh, is that right?
That's cool. Yeah, so now their names are they should be on it now.
Do you
So
know when
next
we'll
time,
find out what the ring looks like?
no, I don't know. That's a good question, actually. I don't know what the ring will look like. I'm sure it's going to be beautiful.
Yeah, it's
I'm
gonna be
excited to
good.
see finally the photos of the Panthers actually on the cup. I think
Yeah.
that's when it'll become real. Like
You know,
seeing all of those names on the cup.
you know what photo I want to see? You know that popular meme image of that fake Victor E holding up a fake Stanley Cup from the 300 level at the arena? You've probably seen it before.
Yeah.
I want him to replicate that, but like for real this time, you know? Now,
Oh, I
now
thought
that
you were gonna say. I thought you were gonna say you want them to put Victor E. Rat's name on the cup. That would
Oh
be cool too.
no! I'm just saying they need to replicate that. They need to replicate that photo, but like for real, for real. But let's get into the meat and potatoes of this episode because a lot has happened. Free agency started, and it was immediately one of the biggest free agency periods in NHL history. Teams dropped a combined $1 billion on the first day of free agency, which is nice. Then the NHL draft happened at the Sphere, which was cool to see because the Sphere is an awesome building. And the schedule was released, and sadly, some teams had some very funny segments. The Rangers or the Devils had a pretty good one. Florida was only okay. They just brought out their fans, all 6 of them, So, anyway, so let's get to the free agency period, Alex. And it's been obviously we knew that a lot of players would likely be leaving because that's just what kind of happens when your team wins the Stanley Cup or just any championship for that matter. The pay demands of the players go up, and the interest from other teams to nab players from a championship winning team go up in the process. So, by the way, it's tough to find a list with every single move that has happened, but some of the big players that we have unfortunately lost are Brandon Montour, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Anthony Stolarz, Kevin Stenlund, and Ryan Lomberg, among others. And Vladimir Tarasenko, of course. Out of all of those players, Alex, and I think I know the answer already, which one do you think will hurt this team the most in the long run?
I am just a little bit nervous about Kevin Stenlund leaving, just because this team is so predicated on their penalty kill this year. It was one of the things that got them as deep as it did, and not just during the regular season, but Game 7, Kevin Stenlund without his stick was one of the marquee moments of that game.
Yeah.
So I think that without him, the penalty kill will suffer unless there's other guys that can step up. I'm sure they will, but for now, until I see that, it's something that will concern me. So yeah, probably Kevin Stenlund not being on the penalty kill.
Yeah.
Also on speaking of special teams, Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Brandon Montour were both the power play quarterbacks. Montour was the power play quarterback mostly for the first unit most of the season. Oliver Ekman-Larsson was the quarterback for the second unit. So they're going to have to find someone to take over those duties. Maybe it'll be Gustav Forsling. Maybe they'll try Aaron Ekblad again. I don't think they should, but they've done it in the past. It's I'm mostly concerned with what the special teams are going to look like because of these departures.
So again, just to let everyone know, Brandon Montour is now with Seattle. Montour got a bag, 7 years, $70 million to go play in the Pacific Northwest. Ekman-Larsson and Stolarz are both going to Toronto. Stenlund's going to the Utah Hockey Club. Lomberg's heading over to Calgary, which is weird. And Tarasenko, I believe, is heading to Detroit to match up with Kane.
Yeah, 2 New York Rangers legends reuniting up in Detroit.
Just not how you wanted to see it happen, but it is what it is. Stolarz, I definitely saw leaving because the Panthers during the regular season had talked so much about how this guy deserves a starting role in the NHL because of how good he is. So that doesn't surprise me. Lomberg again. Now who is Florida going to throw into the ice when they want to fight someone now without Lomberg on this team? Who's going to be that guy now? It's tough.
It might be Nick Cousins.
It's not a bad
That might be the guy now.
Lomberg, and it sucks because Lomberg was the day right after. It may have been it was the day right after that it was announced.
Yeah, the NHL schedule kind of stinks. Right, Ryan Lomberg got 1 week of partying with his team, and now he's going up to Calgary. I don't know if he's actually up in Calgary yet. He could still be down here. I don't know. Training camp doesn't start till September, so I guess he could still party with them until
he could
for the next month.
So Alex, just maybe you have a list on your end, but what's the status of UFA's Nick Cousins, Kyle Okposo, and Steven Lawrence?
So those are the three guys. They're still in limbo. I don't have any information as to who the top suitors are for them, but yeah, those three guys are in limbo. I don't expect Kyle Okposo to come back. That's not me reporting anything. That's just hearing what we've heard throughout the season. Like, it sounds like this was kind of a last hurrah.
Mm-hmm.
But it would be great to get Nick Cousins and Steven Lawrence back. Nick Cousins, especially now that Lomberg is gone, he would be a nice guy to have on that fourth line, or even when you need him to be up on the third line.
So as far as players who have re-signed with this team, the one player this whole season that we wanted to see re-signed was Sam Reinhart for what he brought in the regular season. He was the player that I feel like had the biggest target on his back from all the other NHL teams as far as getting a reliable goal scorer. However, thankfully, he signed an 8-year deal worth $69 million to stay with the Panthers through the 2030s, which is beautiful. And I love Florida's ability to sign players to 8-10-year deals just to make sure that they're going to be staying Panthers for a long time. In addition, Dmitry Kulikov also signed a 4-year deal with a 1.15 average annual cap hit, which is a great contract for Florida specifically. And they most recently signed Anton Lundell to a long-term extension as well. So 3 great players, definitely each one a different utilization on this team, but obviously signing Sam Reinhart is already kind of makes the free agency period. So I'd say a W for the Panthers just because you signed him.
Yeah, especially because when you win the cup, it's hard to improve a whole lot more. Of course, you have to keep improving, but most of those improvements will be around the margins unless a really big name retires. Like, for example, this was like if Matthew Tkachuk was like 37 or something and this was his last hurrah, that's a huge hole you have to fill. Everyone's coming back. Like the 8 of their top 9 forwards are coming back. Vladimir Tarasenko is the only top 9 forward who's leaving. And as helpful as he was last year, it wasn't exactly like he was lighting the world on fire. Don't get me wrong. He was incredibly helpful to this run. He had his role. But the guys that are front and center in this core, they're all coming back next year. Not only are they coming back next year, is it 4? The number's 4. 4 of those guys are locked in for at least 6 years. There were reports either on the first day of free agency or the day before free agency that Carter Verhaeghe might be signing a long-term extension of 6 years. Yeah, 6 years. That hasn't happened yet, but it's in the waters. And so if that's the case, 5 of their top 9 forwards would be here through at least 2029, 2030.
All righty then. So it's unfortunate because, like I said earlier, it's a problem that Stanley Cup winning teams have in the next season is retaining some of their star players. But I think overall Florida has done an okay job retaining their biggest stars. Obviously, it sucks to see players like Lomberg and Montour go because a team that prides themselves on defense, though Montour specifically a big defensive part, Ekman-Larsson as well. But let's talk about who's now coming to this Panthers team from free agency. And let's start with Thomas Nosek. He is a veteran winger that has experience all throughout. Pretty solid goal scorer. He signed a 1-year deal for $775K. He has experience with the penalty kill, which is nice to see. Something that Florida prides themselves on. What can you tell us a bit more about Nosek and what he can bring to the squad?
Yeah, no sec. Like you said, he's a penalty killer. He's a defensive first kind of guy. That's what most teams look for in their fourth line anyway, but especially
Mhm.
the Panthers. So it's kind of just replacing some of the guys that they lost. Him, and then they also got Mackenzie Entwistle from I don't know if I'm pronouncing the name totally correctly, but he's the guy from Chicago. They signed him to a 1 year deal for $775,000. Let me make sure I have that number right. But yeah, he's coming over from Chicago. He's in his mid 20s. He's 24 years old,
Mhm.
and he's another guy who is very physical. Will lay out a big hit. I don't know yet. I've watched a little bit of him in Chicago. I don't know if he's Ryan Lomberg level, but he's a Ryan Lomberg prototype just in terms of the kind of energy. I don't know about personality. I don't think there's anyone who can match Ryan Lomberg's personality, but in terms of like on ice energy and aggression and assertiveness, I think that he's a good replacement.
The fourth line could also be bolstered by that of AJ Greer, who stat wise doesn't immediately sort of pop out at you, but he did sign a relatively solid deal, 2 years for less than $1 million. He comes from Calgary, but has been somewhat of a journeyman. He's been with Colorado, New Jersey, Boston, and most recently the Flames. Hopefully, he can find himself in a great position to be that member of the penalty kill that Florida has become sort of prestigious with. And a big part of their Stanley Cup Finals run this past year. Let's talk about Jesper Buckvist. I hope I'm saying that correctly. From the Boston Bruins, who again has played for prior to Boston, he played with the New Jersey Devils. It's a 1 year deal. He's produced some goals, but you want to add depth to your forward position. You want to have as many reliable players as you have in case something happens. And Jesper kind of fits that line for me, Alex.
Yeah, Jesper Boquist is a pretty good player. He's going to be another fourth line guy. He's probably going to be one of those guys, unless he really, really stands out in training camp and preseason. He's going to be one of those guys that I don't really know if he's going to uh, break camp on the roster. He's going to be him and Mackenzie Entwistle are both going to be competing with Jonah Gadjevich, Justin Stortiv, Zach Dalby, and Will Lockwood,
Mm-hmm.
Rasmus Asplund. So all of those guys are kind of going to be meshed together. Like right now, they don't, just because of tenure here and reputation or lack thereof, it's pretty much those seven guys that I just mentioned: Boquist, Entwistle, Gadjevich, Asplund, Lockwood, Dalby, and Stortiv. They will all kind of be in their own group during training camp, trying to see which of them will come out on top.
Chris Streeter is actually no stranger to the Florida Panthers, as he was Bobrovsky's backup back in pre-COVID, and then during COVID, he was the backup to Bob. So yeah, if I'm not mistaken, he was selected by Seattle in that expansion draft, and even though he hasn't had a whole lot of time um, to play for Seattle, he still is now once again a Panther, and he'll be competing likely with Spencer Knight on that backup position now for Bobrovsky.
Yeah, this one was an interesting one to me. Chris Driedger is a pretty good goaltender, for a pretty good backup goaltender. He was pretty good with the Coachella Valley Firebirds, the AHL affiliate for the Seattle Kraken. Led them through the Calder Cup playoffs. Played in 18 games, had a 2.67 goals against average with a 90.6 save percentage. Went 12-6 in the postseason this year. It was interesting to me because I kind of just assumed, along with most other people probably, that once Stolars leaves, that opens the door for Spencer Knight, and maybe you bring in another AHL goalie who will be the emergency third goalie. But Chris Driedger is like uh, a legitimate backup who can realistically break camp with this team. I'm not sure if there's something going on in the background where they're, and again, this is just me wondering out loud, if they're setting up a trade for Spencer Knight, if they're trying to move on from him for whatever reason. I don't think they should. And I don't necessarily think they are. I'm just wondering out loud. Or if this is just to insert some competition into the mix. Um, it is possible that Chris Driedger does start the season in the AHL. He played in the AHL most of last year with Seattle. It is a one-way contract, which means that he'll be paid the same whether he's up in the NHL or the AHL, as opposed to two-way contracts, which are usually given to guys that are going up and down constantly.
Yeah.
So kind of surprising. Curious to see how that will shake out over the next 2 months. What month are we in right now? Next 2 or 3 months. It'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. I would love to see Spencer Knight back in the NHL.
Yeah.
But like I said, interesting because Chris Driedger could easily be an NHL goalie, but he could also easily be an AHL goalie.
It's been a rough journey in the world of professional hockey for Spencer Knight, and obviously, mental health problems are nothing to joke about. But I really felt that it would be his job to be the backup once it was announced that Stolarz would be heading to Toronto, and now there's going to be some more competition for him to tackle because obviously Bobrovsky can't play every game, and while Stolarz only saw one less than a full game of work in the Stanley Cup playoffs this past season, you obviously never know what could happen, and if that's the case, you're going to need a reliable backup goaltender, especially as Bobrovsky's not getting any younger, which is why it was so great to see him lift the cup.
Yeah, exactly. And as good as Driedger was in the AHL last year, like Spencer Knight was just as good. He allowed 2.4 goals a game, had a 90% save percentage, had 5 shutouts last year. He was really good in Charlotte. Like, he was not struggling at all, which is what makes me think. And again, this is just speculation, just as a precursor. My speculation is that this is just to insert some competition and insert some bodies in there because you don't want to go in there with just 2 goalies just because you never know what's going to happen in terms of injury or performance. But this might just be to insert some competition.
What other free agent signings am I missing here, Alex? This list I hear had those. They were primarily the day one signees, but what other signings as of lately stand out in your opinion?
Well, the Panthers just got a guy who was born in Plantation but raised in Chicago.
Okay.
His name's Jacob Magna. He was born in Plantation. He's on a 2-year deal. He's a defenseman. So he's going to be one of those guys that might start in the AHL. He's an under-the-radar type of guy. Wouldn't expect too much out of him, which is interesting that he grew up right around here. One guy that we kind of snubbed in talking about all this is another guy that they kept. Really, the Panthers' main vibe of this free agency, and it was something that we expected, but it's not unexpected. The guys that they kept rather than the guys that they signed. The guys that they signed are pretty under-the-radar guys. Hopefully they can fill out the margins for this team. But Anton Lundell is one of those 8 guys that I mentioned that are coming back next year. They inked him up to a pretty long-term deal as well.
Out of all the free agents still currently out there for Florida to sign, aside from obviously Panthers from last season, I'm talking about newcomers here. Who are some of the players that you still have your eyes on that you feel would make that Sunrise would make a great home for him?
I really just want them to bring Josh Mahura back. Like I know that this goes against the spirit of the question, but I really liked what I saw from Josh Mahura 2 years ago, and then he really didn't get the chance to play this year because of the log jam, and I really think that he has a lot to offer. Going back to Anton Lundell just for some bookkeeping, it was a 6-year contract with an AAV of $5 million per year. But yeah, Josh Mahura, I would like to see Josh Mahura come back.
Good answer. Well, there's still time, so we'll see what they do as the season slowly gets back to us. But first, we need to talk about some of the newer guys that they got from the NHL Draft. Now, Alex, I have to say, I always knew that the Spear was a cool location, but seeing it actually get used in the draft, man, it looked good. It looked cool. That was a fun 2 days of draft at the Spear. Visually, it looked great.
That was cool. It's kind of a shame. This is going to be the last, at least for now, indefinitely. This is the last centralized draft for the NHL, which means that after this, they're just going to be doing it remotely from team headquarters or from a staff member's home. This is the last time that it's being hosted somewhere, which kind of stinks because I actually really liked it. I would have liked to see more from it going forward because the Sphere is a very cool place.
It is, and obviously what the NFL does is the draft is in a different city every year. They could do the same thing in the NHL. I guarantee you that some draft parties in some of for some of the Canadian teams would be super sick. But I digress. Trades from years past ensured that Florida's draft picks would be sort of limited, and such was the case that they didn't have a first round pick, which stinks. But their second round pick, 58th overall, Linus Eriksson. What can you tell us about him?
Yeah, he's a center. He was playing in the second tier of the Swedish league last year. He's 18 years old. He put up some pretty good numbers against some better competition. Excited to see that. Always nice to get a center, especially into a center from Europe. They have a pretty good track record over here.
They do.
I felt like they did pretty good, just in general. It's very hard to judge players at all in the draft, but especially when you don't even have the first and second round. But as far as third round picks go, I think that this guy's gonna be pretty good. Or at least I don't want to say he's gonna be pretty good. I hate predicting draft picks, but I like what I've seen from him.
The biggest overall story of the draft was the Duck player's reaction when his name was called. He was in utter shock. I actually do kind of like the fact that the NHL players aren't told who they're being drafted by prior to it being announced, because the reactions are just pure genuine, and that was super funny.
Yeah, that was awesome. My favorite part was when the Montreal Canadiens pick came up early in the draft. Everyone's just booing the hell out of them, and then they bring in Celine Dion to announce their pick, and everyone stops immediately.
That was fun too. Jeez. Some good moments there at the draft. See, this is why they need to be in person, because you're not going to find all this cool stuff happening if the draft is remote. So to go around the remainder of the draft, in the third round, the Panthers selected Matvei Shuravin, defenseman from, I believe, a Russian league or a Russian club.
Yeah, he was playing in the second tier league. He got called up to the KHL, which, for those that don't know, is the top hockey league in Russia. It's probably, I mean, I think you would agree with this, Jake. It's the second best league.
Mm-hmm.
It's the best league outside of America, I should say.
Yeah.
He was playing there as a 17-year-old. So that tells you the kind of competition that he's been up against and still been able to accomplish. So I think that he'll adjust to the AHL and then the NHL pretty well.
Next up in the fourth round, pick 129 is Simon Zether, who another center that hopefully now you have all of a sudden you have a rookie competition between Linus and Zether, as well as all these guys, to see which rookies can actually get time with Florida, which isn't going to be easy. Obviously, they're a championship caliber team that wants to run it back, so it's hard to say how much rookie time these players could even be getting, unless it's like it's like an 8-1 blowout and you just want to bring them in just to see what they can do. But it's going to be tough for these players to find time.
Yeah, definitely. But I'm excited to see what they do at the development camp. I think that's a great thing that these teams do. I will say one guy that you didn't mention that I was interested in. Full disclosure, I got this little bit of info from Jameson Olive from FloridaPanthers.com in his write-up about all these guys.
Okay.
It was Simon Zether, center out of Sweden. They got him in the fourth round. Apparently, he says that he models his game after Kevin Stenlund.
Is that right?
Give it like 5 years, and we might have another Kevin Stenlund on our hands.
Oh, that would be awesome. Especially because, unfortunately, we said Stenlund's over in Utah now. So to fill that gap with a potentially young star like him, that'd be awesome. In the sixth round, Florida took Stepan Gorbanov. Also in the sixth, they took Hunter St. Martin. And in the seventh round, they took Denise. Help me out here, Alex. Denise.
Oh, that's Gabrakanov.
Okay. All right.
I think Florida Panthers PA announcer Andrew Imber is going to have to practice that name like every night for the next 5 years. Luckily, he's a 7th-round pick, so he might have some of a head start in having to learn that name. But that is a mouthful. I think that's 6 syllables. 5 syllables.
Somewhere around there. It's a ridiculous amount of syllables. Unfortunately, they make it also difficult because they couldn't even add an actual photo of this guy. They just had the default Panthers jersey as his icon in the draft selection. But I digress. Also, Alex, not that I really truly care, but the fact that no one congratulated the Panthers on winning the cup in the draft is a little bit weird. You kind of felt the same energy during that super cringe NHL awards show the day prior, where no one really seemed to give a damn about Florida winning the chip. It's weird. I'll just say I'm not mad about it. I'm not losing sleep over it, but it is a little weird.
Yeah, I think I read somewhere that teams were told this year to hurry it up a little bit, and I think that includes not congratulating the Stanley Cup winning team. Whatever. Either way, we got the cup, we got the parade, we got the rings. So I don't really care what the opinion of the Colorado Avalanche is. I don't really care if the San Jose Sharks congratulate us on winning.
And we're going to have the banners. Off topic, I hope they update the look of the banners accordingly. I hope they go back in order of
yeah, me too. I don't like that they do that. It's out of order. It doesn't make any sense. I don't like it.
It's listed by, I believe, division titles and then conference championships and then retired numbers, blah, blah, blah. It needs to be in order, especially because, 30 years have gone by,
Yeah.
So, and they need to pull out something cool.
Before we go, the banner raising night, opening night, is against none other than the Boston Bruins. That is awesome. It's a little bit diabolical. It's hilarious.
Yeah. Well, it was hilarious to take on Toronto in the home opener last year. It was funny.
But this is going to be so much better.
It is.
So much better.
Yeah, we'll get into the schedule release. By the way, I'm gonna miss seeing that 30th anniversary logo on center ice. I'm gonna miss it. I'm gonna miss it badly. Now I want to get a shirt with that logo specifically on it.
It's iconic now.
It is. It's like the most iconic logo in Panthers history, and that's saying something because they got some great logos, past and present. So let's get into the schedule. And I don't know how much you've analyzed the entirety of a freaking schedule, but there are some cool matchups and some cool stretches of home and even road games here and there. But yeah, like you had mentioned, the home opener is on Tuesday, October 8th. It's part of an NHL triple header that night. I forget what the first matchup is. I know the last matchup is Utah hosting someone, but I think Chicago. But yeah, the Panthers will host the Boston Bruins, 7:00. That'll be on ESPN. We will see the Panthers raising the banner for their Stanley Cup win and taking on the team that they have bounced in the Stanley Cup playoffs for the past 2 seasons. Of all the teams they could have selected to have the Panthers take on, I feel like that's probably the best choice, low key. You could argue bring in a team like the Utah Hockey Club just so you can see something you've never seen before. But no, the hilarity of having to have Swayman and all those guys sit there and look at the Panthers win a title before they could, it's a good feeling. I like the call.
Yeah, it's great. We've got some reunions to talk about. Mm-hmm. We'll have Brandon Montour back in the building February 22nd with Seattle. Mm-hmm. Edmonton, rematch with Edmonton, February 27th in Sunrise. Ryan Lomberg is coming back with Calgary March 1st. And then Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Anthony Stolarz are also coming back November 27th with Toronto.
The whole month of November is going to be a great month for Florida because I believe out of the, let me make sure I have this right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Out of the 15 games played in November, I believe 11 of them are going to be home games in Sunrise. So if you're a Panthers fan looking to find some great matchups, November will have you covered. They are even doing a home, the rare, I would say rare, the home doubleheader twice in that stretch against both Dallas and New Jersey. So that'll be something to look forward to. Down the line, I always like to see the teams Florida have to play last, because those can obviously be very important games. And thankfully, 4 out of the last 5 Panthers games of the regular season will be at home, with their final game being a quick trip up to Tampa. So I like that. I always like seeing Florida ends their season primarily at home.
Definitely, especially because remember how big of a deal it was this past year, that they ended the season at home and were able to just kind of rest around for 5 or 6 days.
Yeah, they didn't have to go anywhere.
Yeah, so just come back home from Tampa the night of game 82, and then hang out for a week, and then it's round 1.
Always a fun instance where they do a quick doubleheader home and road against Tampa. That'll be right before Christmas. On December the 22nd, they'll head to Tampa. On the 23rd, they'll come back home and face Tampa. That'll be a fun road trip. If you Panther fans, if you're down for it. Obviously, an opponent that everyone kind of wants to see just because they're new is the Utah Hockey Club. They'll be in town on Friday, March the 28th. They're just going to be the Coyotes in disguise as far as talent goes. But I mean, it's something new, and it's something you'll only see one year because next year they're going to change their look. I do feel confident that hockey in Utah will ultimately end up being a success, especially if the team turns out to be good. That might be a bit of trouble with the roster they have right now, but I actually do have faith that the Utah hockey team will be a good remainder in the NHL.
Yep. That'll be nice. That'll be fun to see some different threads in the arena for that one. I always love seeing some new uniforms like in person, so that'll be nice. But like you said, not really a new team. It's just the Arizona Coyotes roster pretty much. I believe it's 14 home games on Saturdays.
That's
14 Saturday home games every single Saturday in November. So that'll be fun.
And I think we're still ways away from finding this out, but I'm also interested to see what the giveaways, like the special giveaway days, would be for Florida. I only say this because I'm trying to build an awesome hockey bobblehead collection. And last year they gave out bobbleheads for Barkov, Kachuk, and Ekblad. If they keep it similar and release 3 new bobbleheads this year, I would like for them to be Verhaeghe, Reinhart, and Bobrovsky, of course. That'd be a great addition to that lineup of miniature bobbleheads. Just saying. You're muted, Alex.
Bob making the save against Tampa, the bobbery. I think that would be a fantastic bobblehead.
I need that. I would rather them just put that on a shirt, and they probably will.
They probably will. I don't know if the Panther. I don't know if it's an official.
Yeah, I think it's an unofficial version of it, but yeah. They need to drop one at Pantherland, and I'll go grab it, And hopefully, especially if you haven't already gotten your Stanley Cup Finals merch, if it's anything like last year, once the season gets going, they'll have a lot of Stanley Cup Finals merch at Pantherland, and it'll be a pretty good discount. I don't know about 50% like it was last year because they didn't win it last year, but maybe 25, 30% discount. So Pantherland will be buzzing. I'll have to grab a few things. I'll grab a puck. I'll grab a refrigerator magnet, maybe a shirt or hat or two. I would say hat. It's impossible to find good fitted hats in the NHL, and that makes me mad. But I digress. Alrighty, so that was your look at the state of Florida post championship. How are you still on cloud 9, Alex? Has the mindset that, all right, we're the champions, and now we got to get ready to defend the territory again? Or are you still like, oh, man, I mean, this is something that we might never see again. So just take it all in while you still can.
I'm excited to see what the energy is going to be like next year. Like, not just from the players, but from the fans as well. Like, I'm excited to see, like, what just a general Panthers game will look and feel like in the arena. I think almost every game is going to be sold out. I think every game is going to be almost sold out.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of them will be actually sold out. It's going to be hard to get tickets, but I think that just makes the energy even better. It's going to
They'll
be
sell out the Friday, Saturday, Sunday games. I have no doubt about that. It'll be interesting to see if they've gotten to the point where they can sell out those Mondays or those Wednesdays or those Thursdays, where it's tough, where it's a work day, So but they're the Stanley Cup champions. They obviously deserve they deserve it. Not and obviously an amazing turnout at that championship parade on the beach, despite the crappy weather. Still just an absolute sea of people. So, man, it's just been so awesome seeing Dade and Broward just completely rally around this Panthers team to the point where even the mayor of Fort Lauderdale said they want to build the Panthers a brand new arena in downtown, which I don't know if I completely see happening, but I don't know.
Well, I think the Panthers have a lease at Amerant Bank Arena for like a couple of decades.
Yeah, so I feel like they don't want to move. I mean, Sunrise, I don't know if it's the best location in South Florida to put a hockey team, but that's where they're at. The arena's pretty nice. It's right next to a highway, and it's right next to a bustling mall, which obviously has become famous as the hockey capital of the world, Sawgrass Mills. So I loved the fake parade routes where they would literally take it into Sawgrass Mills because you know what? It deserves it. I don't know if anyone has taken the cup to Sawgrass Mills yet, but it needs to go there at some point.
Oh, so I was wrong. So the Panthers' lease ends after the 2028 season, from what I'm reading.
Is that right?
So
maybe. I mean, it'll take Fort Lauderdale more than 4 years to get a new arena ready. So, but especially if it's downtown Fort Lauderdale. Like, first of all, where are you going to put it? Second of all, there's going to be probably 0 parking lots if you do put it in downtown Fort Lauderdale. And third, I don't have a third, but still, I don't know. I it's kind of a love-hate relationship sometimes with Amerant Bank Arena just because of location, but I like the arena. It's nice. It's serviceable. It has like 20 to 30 different alcoholic brands you can buy, and obviously a pretty fun shop in Pantherland. So it is what it is. It just feels good to be the champions. It just feels good. Funnily enough, Alex, one of the best tweets I've seen since the Panthers winning the championship was right after Florida's loss. The Marlins lost to Chicago last night, and the Panthers historian had this photo. He put out, I'm putting a Stanley Cup champion patch on my Florida Marlins jersey because it's going to be the only championship I'll ever see in my lifetime, and it's literally a Stanley Cup patch on a teal Florida Marlins jersey. It was the most real thing I've ever seen.
I saw that. That was interesting to see. I've never seen anything like that. That's awesome. He's the only person that I think can pull that off. It's such a great account.
Shout out Panther historian. Is there ever an account who deserved to see the Panthers lift the cup than that one after all the hell it's taken in these decades of having to historically record sometimes a really bad team? But no. The vibes are amazing right now here in South Florida. And in a couple of months, the high will start to leave and we'll get back into the mindset of, all right, it's time to get back into this current hockey season. But just seeing the NHL post, seeing that one NHL post talking about the teams remaining that have never won the Stanley Cup and seeing Florida not on that list, oh, man, it's amazing. The fact that teams like Vancouver and Buffalo have never won it, even though they're super old teams, is kind of crazy. Just saying. Yeah. Alrighty, Alex, any final thoughts on the direction of the Florida Panthers post-championship here on their free agency, on their draft class, and just sort of what to expect?
Yeah, well, I saw something from, I believe it was Money Puck. They put something up about the highest amount of WAR that was added to each team in 5-on-5 defense, and the Panthers were at the top for free agency. So it was great to, just more of the same next year. I think it's going to be a lot more of the same, just different names, but the same skill set from different guys. And I'm just glad to see that this core is locked up and that the guys that brought us here are going to be here for a long time.
And hopefully they'll be able to do what they want to do, which is to repeat and have this franchise become a dynasty as they hopefully reach the cup next year and take on the Nashville Predators, who have turned themselves into contenders after signing Stamkos and Marchessault. Pretty good free agency for Nashville, I will say.
100%.
All righty, so I don't know when we'll be back, but hopefully to talk a bit more about some Panthers news. And yeah, man, until next time, just keep celebrating this championship win because, come on, man. South Florida sports teams don't win championships that often here. So when they do, you have to party like you've never partied before. So have a great rest of the night. Go watch some highlights of the Stanley Cup win, and let's go home, baby!
Send it in.